All right, folks, we are
Hi, guys.
back.
We are back. Um, as you come in, let us know that you're here.
Let's do it.
Say what's up. We were away last week.
Yeah,
We had a great reason. Our daughter had a milestone birthday, and we just did not want to rush her evening or rush her birthday festivities
yeah,
because we always try to find ways to let our kids know that ministry is important but not more important than they are.
yeah.
So all is well, but that's why you all didn't see us last week. But we have a great topic as usual for you tonight. Please go ahead and share this. Let people know that we are on. Hey, Akusha. You can share this on your social media, share it in a text
Yeah.
for all your single, dating, and engaged friends. If they are not married, they can absolutely benefit from this session.
Yeah. It's gonna be a fun one tonight, and we want you just to jump in because it's wild in these streets. Okay, it's wild in these streets trying to find out if the person you're dating is the one, trying
Hmm.
to make good decisions, or maybe you're on the rebound. But that's what this group is all about. And we hope and pray that the videos that we've done, the sessions we've done before this have helped in some kind of way.
Hmm.
So we're going to get started in a few minutes, but this is important. I wish we had something like this, PJ, where while we were in the dating phase, right? So
Mm.
of course we had parents, friends, things like that,
Yeah.
but an avenue like this that kind of told us a little bit about marriage, because if you can know some things about marriage before you get married, it'll definitely help your relationship with that special someone.
Yeah.
And we have a ton of experience, been married almost 18 years. And
Hmm.
we're going to talk about a few things tonight. We're actually going to help you tonight as it relates to finding the one, right?
Yeah.
Answering some questions, thinking about some things
Hmm.
to make sure you can find the one. We're going with the assumption that you're out here trying to get married, right?
Right.
And that's a good thing. We celebrate marriage.
Yes,
So let's
absolutely.
do
Good to
this.
see you too, Tristan.
Yeah.
All right, so we are jumping right into tonight's topic, which is signs that you might be too picky in relationships.
Yeah.
So maybe you're not dating anyone because you're super picky, or maybe you are dating someone, but you're starting to reconsider whether or not you want to marry them, and perhaps some of the reasons that you may have for not wanting to marry them or starting to become unsure might be on the picky side. So we want to help you navigate that tonight. So yes, signs you may be too picky in relationships. All right, so here is sign number one, and we're going to unpack all of these as we go along.
Yeah.
But sign number one is you focus more on
Or superficial.
superficial
Yeah.
traits than character.
Let's go.
So that is sign number one. If you
Right.
focus on superficial traits more than the person's character.
Yeah. So we're talking about superficial things like height, eye color, right? Hair color. We have all these superficial things that we imagine when we're thinking about a spouse, the person we're going to spend the rest of our life with.
Mm-hmm.
And we can miss who God has for us if we're caught up in these superficial things.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think, for first of all, you've always been so attractive to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when we first met, I was blown away by you physically. But to suggest that the person you marry will be everything that you have on your list, the superficial things, the surface things, right? How
Yeah.
tall they are, how long their hair is,
Mm-hmm.
right? Their body, like all these things in the grand scheme of marriage absolutely don't matter.
Yeah.
And maybe you're focusing too much on something superficial. What do you
Yep.
think about that, PJ?
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard for anybody to have someone that, like you said, checks everything off of their list.
Yeah.
So, for as much as you say that you were blown away, you thought
Yeah.
I was beautiful,
Yeah.
but he also says he never thought he would necessarily marry somebody that's petite. I
Yeah.
mean, he's not. You didn't have anything, I guess, against petite
Right.
girls, but it's just not something that you were like, I'm going for somebody that's petite.
Yeah.
Like I actually know
someone.
know
Yeah.
someone who says he loves petite women. Like
Yeah.
he's actually a big guy, and he's like, if she's petite, that's his thing. But some men are like, petite, I don't know, right? But it's a superficial thing to say, I'm not going to date her or marry her because she's petite.
Yeah.
Because these are things that people cannot change also. So
Wait, you can't change how tall you are?
If I could, I would have by now. And I've never wanted to be tall. I just wanted a couple more inches.
Like how many more inches?
Just like 2 to 3.
2 to 3.
Mhm.
That's not a lot.
It's not a lot
It's
because
like,
I don't.
God, why can't you just hook a sister up with
Correct.
2, 3
Because
more?
I actually didn't. I've never had the desire to be
Yeah.
overly tall, and maybe it's because in my family on both sides, the women are just not tall.
Right.
So I guess I just never. There's nothing wrong with tall women, but I guess I didn't grow up seeing at family functions all of these tall women. We're all petite, so I guess I just, because that's all I saw mainly, I just fit in with everybody else.
Right.
So I didn't feel awkward around my family, especially my mom's side of the family. Everyone's is pretty petite.
Yeah.
So I never felt out of place, but it was when I started to really pay attention after a certain age that like some of my friends were still growing, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm actually done.
Right.
So, but this is why it's so important to pay attention to character, because superficial things are things that people can't, not only can they not change, but they're things that don't have any bearing on what type of person they are in here.
Right.
And I remember watching this clip of this girl who had called into some podcast or show or whatever. I don't even know what the show was.
Mhm.
I just saw a clip, and the host was saying to the young lady, can you run that by me again? Like, tell everybody what you were saying about the man that you marry. And she was saying that where she lives is an expensive place to live.
Right.
And the amount of money that she makes, the gentleman can't make any less than 200,000. So she was like, if he makes less than 200,000,
Yeah.
what is he? And the girl said, he's a boyfriend, but he can't be a husband.
Can't be.
She was like, because if I make a certain amount on my own, then you have to at least. And I'm like, but this is, again, that's something superficial.
Yeah.
Does he work? Does he know how to provide?
Yeah.
Is he one of those people that he can hold down a job? He's not one of those men that's always in between jobs, or a man that's lazy.
Yeah.
If he's a hard worker, but he doesn't make 200,000, now
Right.
he's out of the running.
Listen.
Well, what is his character?
What is his character?
I thought that was like crazy.
And so what? Let's put something in the chat. What is a superficial trait to you that you're willing to? I guess that you're willing to overlook, right? And say, hey, I can look past this. What's a superficial trait that maybe you had on your list when you were younger, or when you were in high school and it was like a dream for you, but now that you're saying, hey, I'm getting older, what's a superficial trait that you're willing to say, I'll look past this?
And while we're waiting for the comments to come in, because there's a little bit of a lull.
Yeah.
I just saw a picture of a girl. I don't even know her personally. Somehow she added me on Facebook, I think a couple years ago.
Right.
And she just said that she's counting down to her wedding, which is in less than 3 weeks. And she is inches taller than the man she's marrying. But I'm so happy for her, because she's like, finally, God sent me my person. I'm so happy. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
And I don't know how tall she is. I don't even know her personally. But the fact that I could tell, even with flats on, she's inches taller than the man she's about to marry. Obviously, there's something in here that makes her say, this is a good man.
Yeah.
This is going to be better than me passing because he's got, and I can tell she's not short.
Right.
So she could be well above what's average for a female. And she's like, oh, well.
Oh, well, let's do it.
So now the answers are coming through. So some things that people are saying that they know that they've had that are superficial traits. Akusha says he has to be dark skinned.
Right. That's what she wanted.
Yes. Yep.
Probably still wants, but.
Right. But if God says, Akusha, the perfect man I have for you is fair skinned, you don't want to miss him just off of that. If you refuse a man, it needs to be because he is not a godly man.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm assuming that this might be Xavier, but X says how tall she is.
Yeah.
Listen, that can be a hang up for people. Some people are like, we know somebody right now who's like, I prefer women on the taller side.
Yeah.
And we know another guy who's on the other extreme, and he's like, I like a small, petite woman. But neither of those guys should miss out on a great girl because of how tall she is.
No.
All right. Muscular and height.
Right.
All right, Bree.
Listen, she's like, he could be a little round. I'll take him a little round. Because I used to want their muscles, but if he has good character, then he could be a little round.
Right. Akusha said she always thought chocolate people were so beautiful and they have even skin tone. So it sounds like even skin tone is another trait.
Yeah.
Actually, when we got married, Akusha, I had terrible acne flare-ups.
Yeah.
I didn't have like the cystic acne that some people have, but it was still pretty bad.
Yeah.
But my skin has cleared up as I've gotten a lot older.
Right.
It seemed like after I had my son, my skin just completely changed. And I still have oily skin, but I just don't seem to break out like that. I also stopped getting relaxers though. And I noticed my acne also did clear up once I went natural. So there's that. But
I didn't
skin tone thing. He wasn't like, oh, you know what? Jen is great person, but that acne.
Yeah.
I actually used to stress about my acne more than you even did.
Yeah.
Okay. Tristan says coming from 2-parent homes. Listen, that can be a hang up for people, right? Some people may feel like I have to marry somebody from a 2-parent home, but guess what? In both of our backgrounds, our moms come from parents that our moms have parents that literally stayed together and were happily married till death caused them to till death do us part.
Right, to separate.
But then both of our dads come from families where the dad didn't really hang around the way he should have.
Right.
And so if our moms had looked at each of our fathers and said, I can't marry you because you're not coming from a stable 2-parent home environment, both of our moms would have missed out on great husbands.
Yeah.
And we have great dads.
We have great dads. So, they did an excellent job.
Yeah. My dad experienced, my dad's parents, I think, got divorced when he was only 2. And his dad was not in his life for so many years. And I'm so proud of my dad because he did not repeat the cycle. He was there for me and continues to be there for me, not just by being married to my mom, but he was emotionally present. Yeah. Same with your dad. So I'm saying all of that to say that just because they may not come from what you may consider the ideal home environment doesn't mean that they're going to repeat some of those same mistakes.
Absolutely. So we kicked this off with just talking about superficial things because those are the things that don't stand the test of time when it comes to a long-standing relationship. And we want it to be healthy, and we want it to just really last. So I want you to consider those things and say, hey, can I just look past some of these things in order to find my person?
Yep.
So let's go to the next one.
So the next reason why the next sign that you might be too picky in relationships is you find reasons to disqualify everyone.
Everyone.
Yep.
Everyone, not someone, but everyone. Subconsciously, you could be sabotaging relationships.
Yeah.
Because if you feel like they're not good enough, or even somewhere deep down inside you feel like you're not good enough, you're afraid of commitment, you're
Yeah.
afraid of stepping into that level of relationship, you may be disqualifying
Hmm.
everyone. And it could be simple, small things like you go out on a date, you don't like how they eat, right? They eat with their mouth open, they chew with their
Oh,
mouth open.
that one is pretty bad. I mean,
Yeah, I think
I
I
mean, I
think if
guess
you
it's
I
some.
think if you ate with your mouth open, I might have had to reconsider
Yeah, I mean,
as a
granted, and we're
lady.
sitting here supposed to be teaching y'all how not to be picky, but that, I mean,
Yeah.
that's crazy. But it can be small annoyances. Like I remember years ago, my sister-in-law, there was a guy that was really interested in her, and she said after hanging out with him one time, she was like, I can't do it. His sinus issues are too severe. And I was like, not his sinus issues, girl. Like, tell me something about his poor attitude, or tell me that you found out he doesn't really love the Lord. Like she was like, no, it's a sinus issue. She was like,
Mm.
I just feel like if this is your sinus issues during the day, then your sinus issues at night are going to just be something I can't live with. So, I
Then stay
mean,
single. Then stay single.
yeah. And he did end up marrying someone else who I guess is willing to put up with his sinus issues.
I
But you
mean,
can literally start to disqualify people for really trivial reasons, or you can even start to compare.
mhm,
And so you start to disqualify people because you're looking over the fence at someone else's relationship and what you think they have. And then you start to disqualify the person you're with because you start to think that maybe the grass is greener.
mhm.
So that is why comparison, and we talk about it in our book. I thought I had a copy of it down here with me, but that's what we talk about in our book, that comparison is a killer. It
Yeah.
will kill your relationship because now, okay, it looks like Susie has a man that's doing X, Y, and Z, and you think your man isn't doing those things. And so now you're disqualifying someone that may be amazing for you.
Yeah. Like we have here in the notes that you constantly think that there might be someone else better out there.
Yeah.
This idea of settling can be a real problem
Mm-hmm.
because you look at the person and you're like, they're good, but I feel like I can do a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
And you keep turning people down because there's something better out there for
Yeah.
you. And we're saying, you know, you may be missing out on something great because you're just too picky in a particular area. And happiness comes in so many different forms and fashions
Mm-hmm.
and different shapes and sizes, and you're gonna have to just settle. I was talking to someone a couple weeks ago and I was like, as a man, you're gonna have to just wrap a lot of discipline around your life, around your brain, and say, I'm going to lean into this one
Yeah.
woman.
Mm-hmm.
And there may be other pretty women,
Mm-hmm.
but I will focus and devote my life to this one woman. That takes a lot of discipline,
Yeah.
right? It's not about, do you have the most handsome, the most beautiful? No, do you have something you're attracted to and you think is beautiful? Then
Mm-hmm.
focus on that.
Yeah.
Out here trying to compete and have like number one,
Mm-hmm.
that's the wrong way to go about it.
Yeah.
And we just got to be disciplined and focused and say, I choose you.
Mm-hmm.
I choose you.
Yep. Now we have a question here. If a person spins the block for a reason like he had to wait on you, should I, as the woman, give them a chance?
So, um, trying to understand your question, Akusha. Can you clarify a little bit? So, are you trying to say that he was out here just doing, dating different people, and he had to just wait on you, or he was sitting lonely and now you're coming around, and I'm trying to understand. Um,
Yep.
so
We'll give you
we'll get back to that one.
Yep.
But Tristan is saying, yeah, it's about sticking to your person.
Mhm.
That's marriage can't be successful if you have a wandering eye. If your eye is never full,
Yeah.
right? You just have to lean into that person and be like, man, this is the one for me.
Yeah.
And one of the I think immature relationships do this all the time. They are hesitant, or they can't admit when they see someone that is handsome, or they see someone that is beautiful, and they're insecure, or the relationship isn't secure enough, and they don't know how to either express that, or they don't
Right.
know how to either say that in a safe way.
Mhm.
Like, you're not gawking over the person, you're not making your spouse feel uncomfortable. But I think you get to a healthy place where you're able to say, man, that person on TV is handsome,
Yeah.
but I love you. Like, I would never leave you for them.
Right.
You're my one and only. But this idea that we don't have any discipline, like we're always looking for the next big thing, always looking for something to take us higher, that's superficial.
Yeah.
And you definitely will struggle to find your person.
So Kusha, okay, we went out and I thought it was a great time. Date is over and well. Low key, he silently ghosted me. Recently, he reached out and stated the reason was he was waiting on me to get ready. Okay, so you're saying, okay, so it sounds like you went out with a guy,
Yeah.
but that day you had been doing makeup and he felt like he had to wait too long on you. So even though you went out and thought it went great, after the date, he ghosted you because he's saying he felt like on that first date, he was, I guess, upset that he had to wait on you longer than maybe what he thought in order to get ready. And you feel like he should have told you before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a I'll say what I think, and then I definitely want you to try and from a guy's perspective. I think that is kind of a tricky one because it's the first date, so it's kind of hard to determine that this guy's not a good communicator, or determine that this guy is an unreasonable person. Perhaps punctuality is a big deal to him. I know it's a big deal to me.
Right.
And so even though you're like, hey, he should have told me, I do feel like he is telling you now. Now, ghosting you, I could get how that is actually coming off as mad disrespectful, especially if he's leading you to believe that the date went well.
Mm-hmm.
But perhaps he didn't know how to approach the subject. Not everybody learns good communication skills in the households in which they grow up. Pastor and I have learned that through doing marriage counseling, couples counseling. Some people really don't even mean harm. They just have not learned good communication skills.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps it took him a minute to try to figure out how to let you know what annoyed him, what made him feel bad. So I would say, because it's the first date, unless there's a huge character flaw or another red flag that is screaming, do not go with this person, then I would say maybe give a little grace because it is the first date. So could he have told you sooner? I think that would have been the better response than ghosting you. But I also think that, again, some people don't mean harm. They just don't know how to better communicate. And you won't know if that's just part of his character or if he's trying to do better, but he had to muster up the courage because he never learned how to properly confront. You won't know that if you don't give him another chance.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just try it again. It's too early. It's too early to tell.
Mm-hmm.
So if y'all are willing to try it again, then go ahead. Try it again.
And this says, she said her mom says she's going to be late to her own funeral. Yeah. Well, Akusha.
Yeah.
That is funny.
Yeah, that is funny. So let's go to the next one.
Yep.
You want to do this one?
Well, sure. Whichever one you want to do next.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So some signs, or another sign that you may be too picky, is that you over rely on feelings and the spark. All right. That infamous spark. I think this is a good one because everyone wants to feel like, man, this thing is explosive. We got something going. You just want, those vibes, that connection. What if it's a situation where it's just flat? Like we've seen a few times where the relationship just starts off as just okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to say, well, this person shouldn't get a third date, fourth date, because we've gone out a couple times and I'm just not feeling them.
Yeah.
Well, if there's nothing wrong, maybe that spark will come later.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe you have to continue to light the fire. I love to barbecue. I love to grill.
Yeah.
And the last time I was starting to grill, it was just taking a long time to light. And sometimes you just have to continue to work it, put things together so that you can find that spark. And you can't really determine or dictate when it's going to happen.
It's true. And one of the things we also have in here is that sometimes people's issue is they believe that love has to always feel exciting. And so if you go through a period where it just doesn't feel exciting, then you lose interest and you want to move on. I also think that's how some people get caught up in affairs, because they forget that marriage and relationships have seasons. Not every single season is exciting. You will have rough patches. And we've probably talked about this in some form in our lives before, but you will have seasons where it won't be exciting because maybe you're stressed about finances. Maybe you're stressed about someone's health. Maybe you and or your spouse have had to become caregivers to aging parents.
Right.
And so in those moments, it probably won't feel exciting like it did when you all were dating. Furthermore, one thing we just talked about yesterday is that love matures. Your love matures. And so even though I still know that he's my person and vice versa, the exact same emotions I had when we first started dating are just not going to be the same almost 18 years later.
Yeah.
So your love for the person is still there. Your attraction to the person is still there. But if your whole thing is I have to feel butterflies and sparks and fireworks every day throughout the life of the relationship, or else I'm not going to be interested.
Yeah.
That is being too picky, and it's also being immature.
Right. I want to ask the ladies in the chat, do you have to have the spark in the beginning? Would you give a man a chance that you didn't initially find so attractive, or you were just friends with them and you don't have that huge fire in your stomach, in your belly?
Mm-hmm.
Would you actually give that a shot? So what I'm asking also is can women grow to love a man?
Yeah.
Right? Can you grow into some kind of burning hot love for a man that's not there initially? I want to hear from the ladies real quick on that, because would y'all just I think it's different for a guy, and maybe we can touch that a little bit, but would y'all say, hey, I'll give a shot to a friend that I'm not really that into right now? Or does it have to start from jump?
Talia says not really, because I prefer to be friends first. So I guess she's saying she doesn't have to feel that spark.
Right.
And then Bree is saying yes, but only because I'm older and see things differently. Yep. It's part of maturing.
Yeah.
Shatima says I have. So Shatima, I guess you're saying you've been in situations where you weren't necessarily initially feeling the spark, but it came, right? I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
And then Brittany says, I think it is possible. Brittany, I've watched documentaries on so many things. And I did watch a documentary on East Indian culture. And some of the couples that they interviewed were couples that say that they're still happily married. And some of them have been married, 40 years, 50 years, 35 years. And one of the ladies said that in her Indian culture, she kind of knew as early as she was able to understand what marriage and relationships were. She knew that for her, it was going to be an arranged marriage because that's just their culture. And she said that in Indian culture, a lot of times moms will tell the young ladies that as your parents, we're choosing for you based on things that we can see that you can't, right?
Yeah.
They almost feel like young people are so much having their head in the clouds that parents are able to be level-headed and say, I'm going to arrange a marriage for you. And she said that initially she saw her husband as just okay. Like she was getting to know him. She was just okay. But even she, when she was talking to him, didn't feel anything adverse or anything that made her say, Mom and Dad, I think you guys are making a mistake by marrying me off. And they've been married for 50 years. She said they ended up being happy. They built great careers in India.
Yeah.
They had kids, blah, blah, blah. So all of that to say, I have heard, Brittany, that women say that it's possible.
Yeah. We know someone in our family
Mhm.
that they weren't that into the person
Yeah.
initially,
Mhm.
and then over time they were like, this is a great person.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they're in love with them.
Yeah. Akusha says she's not always attracted to a guy up front, so she would say yes. Okay, so you're saying that you can go without having the spark initially. Shatima says sometimes men can be awkward in the beginning, but after time you see more of their true personality.
That's true.
I think that's an interesting take,
Yeah.
Shatima, but I think it's a good take. I think I agree with Pastor that that's true. I think you're right. I think sometimes guys, if they're either
They don't know what to say.
Yeah.
They're just, yeah.
Yeah. I
They
mean,
may be nervous.
yeah, like we know a situation of a guy that had gone out on a date with a young lady and he's asking these rapid fire questions. She took it like, bro, am I on an interview? Whereas he
Right.
genuinely was like, oh, sorry, I just was trying to get to know you. He really wasn't trying to be awkward,
Yeah.
but she was so put off by it because she felt like,
This
I
is an
already have a job. I don't
interrogation.
need, right. Yeah,
Now,
because
that
she
was
was
a good
like,
comment.
right, I already have a job. Why am I on an interview? But
Yeah.
she didn't realize initially that he really was just trying to make conversation. So he's just asking question after question
Yeah.
after question. But I think, Shatima, with that type of mindset, that's a great mindset for you to have and for other women to have, because guess what? Maybe on the first or second date, he's a little awkward, but it doesn't mean he's weird or that he's never going to ease in. Maybe he
Mhm.
just needs a little
Yeah.
chance
He needs to
to
warm up,
Mhm.
get comfortable.
Now, but can I ask the guys this?
right?
Because as a female, guys, I want to know, can you be like the guys on the Indian matchmaking series that I watched, that you can also be the one to not necessarily have a spark at first, but you can grow to love the young lady?
Yeah, yeah. Before we
Um,
get to that, Jessica's like, hey, for me, I still need to be attracted, right? So
Mhm.
she's like, I don't have to be like, oh my God, hot and heavy,
Mhm.
but I'm not gonna really go down that road if I'm not attracted, which is understandable, right? If you just know that you'll never be physically attracted to that
Yeah.
or even attracted to their personality,
Mhm.
then it would never work, right?
Yeah.
You can't force it.
Yep. And then Brittany says she's all for a modern day arranged marriage. Listen, Brittany,
As
cultures in the East
okay,
still are big on that. Not just Indians. We see it in Jewish culture.
yeah,
Not just in the East, because your Hasidic Jews, even in America, are going to do full-on arranged marriage. But a lot of this is coming from Eastern practices where, I mean, even in the Bible, we see arranged marriages.
yeah.
And I think I know what he was about to say, because in this here United States in 2025, if a pastor says, I think you should marry this person, and they marry that person and it doesn't work, these people will cancel you in 2025.
Listen,
'Cause
I'm
when-
not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not gonna put my neck out there for you to chop it off when it doesn't work, right? I grew up in an environment where pastors would weigh in on everything: what house you should buy, where you should live, where you send your kids to school, who you should marry. So they did a lot of arranging of those marriages. I do, however, believe that in the right context, a pastor could be a great resource if the
Yes.
pastor knows both parties.
Yep.
And you could say, hey, what do you think about this person?
Correct.
Because pastors have classified info on the folks that go to their church. Okay.
Yeah.
We see a lot, we hear a lot, we know a lot. And so your pastor could be a great resource to just
Whether it's been divulged or we've discerned it, we
discernment.
we often can sense more than some people give their pastors credit for.
Come
right?
on.
And it doesn't mean we love the person any less, but we may be able to say, hey,
Together?
that's a nice person, but for you, that we know
Yeah.
that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
But if you decide you're going to marry them anyway, as pastors in America in 2025, you go ahead and you do what you're doing.
Right. You ain't gonna cancel me for that.
Right. So
I may get canceled for something, but not for that.
Right. Jessica says she needs to feel some type of chemistry and doesn't believe it should feel forced, but should grow. So now we have a guy's answer. So Tristan is saying, yes, I have Indian in my family, and I just look at it as a privilege. I could not talk to anybody, and we all fall short of the glory. If we are trying to take up our cross and walk together, let's do it. Okay. So if you can find some common ground,
yeah,
you're able to see if something can work. Xavier says, I have to find something I like about the person. I think that's fair, right? There should be.
That's how guys are. I mean, guys are visual.
Yeah.
A lot of we have to be attracted. So predominantly it's going to be visually, right? Or I should say initially it probably will be what we see. But even personality wise, we may overlook some things physically if we feel like they just have a good vibe. Now, to me as a guy, it just has to be up front, right? It has to be in the initial phase.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't take those kinds of risks. If I would phrase it that way. We're just gonna be like, all right, so practically a guy has more options. Okay, practically a guy has more options,
right?
Not only in Christian circles, but in the world.
Yeah,
there's just more women than there are men. So some of that plays into our subconscious, right? So we say, hey, if we're not initially attracted to someone, why don't we go with someone that we are initially attracted to? I think we don't have to wait. And a woman may be in a different position, but also women connect differently.
Yeah.
So if I could be a little bit more clear, I would say that a woman connects physically, absolutely. But I think that a man connects physically even more. So a woman can overlook some things that she sees initially, whereas a man may not be as likely to do that.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So I said a few things in there, but I hope I was as clear as I could be. So I think the guys are actually concurring with some of that based on their responses. Like, yeah, I need to like something about her first.
Makusha said her dad is Jewish, but he's not looking out for her. And she also said she saw a post that says dating became difficult when men stopped pleading for love in 90s R&B. That is hilarious. Okay.
Not the Drew Hill.
Right.
Not the Drew Hill R&B.
Do people, well, let me not ask that because people are probably gonna be like, yeah, we knew that. You're the only one that grew up in a bubble. So that's fine.
You sure?
I was gonna say, like, do people know that Drew Hill is actually short for a place in Baltimore that's called Druid Hill Park? And it's like a pretty dangerous part of Baltimore.
I don't know if everybody knew that because back in the 90s, I didn't know that.
Oh, okay. But yeah, coming from Baltimore roots, Drew Hill is actually from Druid Hill Park in Baltimore. And Druid Hill Park is just, back then and even today, is just not one of our best sides to show as a city of Baltimore. But I just wondering, it was just a random thought that I knew. Eliza said, I grew up in Maryland, so I did. Oh, okay. Yeah, Eliza. Oh, you didn't know that? Okay. Akusha didn't know either. Okay, so it's actually not a common knowledge. Maybe you had to be from Maryland and especially from Baltimore to know that. But yep, if you look up Druid Hill Park, it's a real place in Baltimore. Shatima, the church I grew up in, a couple would have to go through counseling with the pastor. I always wondered if that was right. Well, here's the thing, Shatima, we strongly recommend couples to go through premarital counseling pastor and I went through premarital counseling. We did it through my church.
Yeah.
When we were engaged. I do believe it's right. I know a lot of churches that recommend premarital counseling. Now, sometimes it's not always done through the pastor, depending on the size of the church, because sometimes the pastor may have, if it's a really large church and there's several couples engaged at one time, the pastor just may not be able to handle that load. So the church I came from in Baltimore, my pastor actually didn't do the counseling. It was a couple on his team that he had personally vetted. He would vet all the couples. My parents were on the team, but of course they didn't do our counseling. But I do believe that it is right, because what premarital counseling does is a lot of times it helps you have those tough conversations and bring to light things that you on your own may not think to discuss or think to talk about. And it gives a third party that doesn't have a bias an opportunity to weigh in and say, well, have you thought about this? Have you discussed that? Yeah. Especially because some people are not everyone's coming from a wholesome marriage background. And so there has to be someone who has your best interest at heart, that has done this before, that can help you see things that you may not be able to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that premarital counseling would be once the couple is engaged. So my thought on that would be, if you start having counseling sessions with a pastor or a trusted spiritual advisor, and you're not engaged, it could be problems for that relationship. You haven't made a strong enough commitment to each other to start discussing married things, married concerns, things you have to address before you get married. So I would caution a relationship from taking that step if they're not engaged. Like, get engaged first. Promise each other that you're going to do this thing first, and then we could get to some deeper thoughts and advice.
Yeah.
All right. So I just want to throw that out there, because I don't know, sometimes people may not know that. So.
Yeah. Brittany says, I would prefer dating, engaged, and married. The more the merrier. Okay. Are we going on to one of our?
Let's do the last one.
This one is the last one here. So the last sign that you might be too picky in relationships is your standards are unrealistic.
I like that one.
Your standards are unrealistic. So here's one of the first things we have in our notes. You expect perfection, but you aren't living up to those same expectations yourself.
That shot's fired right there.
If your standard is that the person has to always do something, regardless of what that is, like if the standard is, you said you love to cook, so you have to always cook, what are you always doing then in the relationship?
Right. You want them to reach out and text you all the time, but you don't text them.
You're right.
Right. You want all this communication, all this love, and all this connection from them. And when they don't text you and a whole day goes by, why don't you try and reach out to them? We have these standards, and, we are inundated with so much information. You're hearing what dating should be like, what marriage should be like, from so many different sources that we pick up things and we don't even realize it. So we get in a relationship and we have these standards, we have these thoughts.
Yeah.
And it may not even be the case. It may not be the case that your person may be different from the textbook that you're reading. So you're reading a textbook out there of how love should be, but your person may be different. Yeah. So he's not as communicative. He doesn't communicate at a high rate.
Yeah.
But you're reading that as he don't like you. That may not mean that.
Right.
Right. But you've set this standard because of what you've learned, what you've experienced, and what you've seen, whether in your life or out there on a Netflix special. And this guy has to come pre-wired to text you 10 times a day that he loves you, to check up on you, say, hey, I just wanted to drop this text
And
to tell
usually
you
if
I
he's
was thinking
over,
about
and
you.
I would even be careful of the over texting, because then there's a Dateline
Ooh,
story behind that.
Tinder swindler.
Dateline 2020.
Come on. You know,
Actually, have y'all seen Tinder
I think we
Swindler?
brought that up last time.
Did we?
Yeah, I think we brought
Because
that up
some of the
last time.
stuff that these girls were falling for, I'm just like, I just don't. I mean,
Yeah, you
these-
recently rewatched
these-
it.
yeah,
That's why it's
because
on our brain.
I recently rewatched it and picked out even more red flags than I saw the first time I'm like, girls, how are y'all? He like, when the girl was like, oh, he said all of a sudden that even though he's a billionaire, I need to pay these bills because it's not safe for him to use any of his credit cards.
Yeah.
Sit down. I am not swiping my card. You're a billionaire, but I have to swipe my debit card for this dinner out.
Listen, we have to.
No.
Chris Hansen. Oh yeah. He'll have that Dateline just so dope. So let me help the ladies, right? Can I just tell the ladies to be patient? Just be patient. Just be patient with this dude. Be patient with him. You may feel like his lack of response means he's disinterested. And the barometer to measure whether or not he's interested is patience.
Mm.
If you can hold out and if you can refrain from jumping the gun and texting him because you haven't heard from him in 2 days,
Yeah.
then you'll know whether or not he's interested.
Mm-hmm.
If you just step back and say, all right, I'm going to play it cool, the guy will come running if he wants it. And sometimes we jump out there and we mess it up because we haven't really walked long enough with this man to know how he moves.
Mm.
And he may really be into you,
Mm-hmm.
but he moves slow. And you jump the gun and now he's turned off. So patience wins every time if you're a female, because if he's a man, right? If he's a real man, he'll step up and he'll show you exactly what his intentions are.
That's good. Akusha says that's what the young man said to her. He said that she also could have called him.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like you'll know what's going on if you're just patient, right? Because now you know that he feels like you should have reached out to him.
Yeah.
Well, we may be at a crossroads. We may be at a place in an intersection where you're like, hey, I don't want to be that person. I want you to reach out to me. Maybe you had that discussion and you feel like it's not going to work. But however it lands, when you're patient, you're able to read that man and know exactly what you're dealing with. Right?
Yeah.
I just feel, we're in a culture where the eagerness of the woman can be the detriment of the relationship. That's bars. The eagerness of the woman could be the detriment of the relationship. It can destroy things because it can really it really messes up a man's psyche. Men are hunters, and if we feel like we don't have to really go after it, then we may actually lose our drive. So so these are
As Xavier said, say that one more time, please. The eagerness of the woman
could be
the detriment of the relationship.
Right. I just want the ladies to really sit and really be patient. Now you can't be patient to the point where you come off as disinterested.
Yeah.
A woman really needs to, there's just ways for a woman to learn to reel the man in. I mean, you're fishing, but you got to know how to fish. You got to know how to let the fish run with the line when it needs to run with the line, get tired. Then you got to know how to reel it in a little bit. Like, it's an art. And so you got to be wise. You got to know how, okay, I'm texting too much or I'm responding too hard. So PJ and I had this story. I met her. We had an encounter. We were talking. I was like, all right, she's dope. This is great. I put the charm on. We were at church, so I had the suit on, dope, right? Had the swag rolling. So I felt like she was interested. I knew it. I was like, okay, she's interested. We had a mutual friend that I was good friends with her. PJ was really good friends with her as well. So I said to this friend off to the side, hey, what does Jen think about me? And I'm like popping my collar. I'm like, what does she think about me? And this friend was like, Jen just thinks you're okay. I was like, what? You guys, I wasn't ready for that. Like, I knew that she was interested, but because she was playing it cool. Now, PJ, you can tell kind of your side because that wasn't really the case. You were very much interested.
Yes, but my dad had always taught me that men don't go for the girl that's eager. They go for the girl that gives them a bit of a challenge. So he was like, so if you're interested in this guy, you don't want to play like so hard to get to where you actually make him think you're not interested. And my dad was like, but you need to make him sweat a little bit. You need to make him think that, well, hold on, I thought she was more interested in than she is. And he's like, because if he's interested in you, that's going to be intriguing. And he's going to be like, well, all these other girls are falling all over me, but I'm going after the girl that's like, you okay. So I knew my friend, she didn't tell me this, but I was like, I'm smarter than the average bear. If she's a mutual friend, I know she's going to go back and tell him exactly what I say. So I'm not even going to tell her how interested I am. I'm going to tell her I think he's okay. I didn't want to say I don't like him at all because that would not have been true. But I didn't want to tell either one of them how I really felt initially. And my dad's advice worked because here I am, married for almost 18 years to the guy that I said, he's okay. Yeah. My dad was like, just be calm, just relax. My dad was like, he doesn't have to know the first few days that you're meeting him that you're like that into him. Yeah. My dad was like, give him a little, but mainly relax.
Yeah. And then that's what just made me say, wait, we got to step this game up. And I really started to put it on. And I think if she was eager, oh man, it would have messed the whole thing up. It would have, I'm telling y'all right now, if she was eager, if her friend was like, yeah, she thinks you're handsome and blah, 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 man, I would have been like, yeah, all right. But so I said a lot there, but I'm hoping it helps because when them standards are unrealistic and somebody told you somewhere along the line that the 2025 woman needs to, be in that kind of control. And, you got to know day one, if he's interested, like you got to text him and you got to, you have to be there, you have to be present, but I would watch that. And sometimes your standards could be unrealistic based on what you heard. But I'm going to tell you what I know about men.
Yeah.
All right.
So if you have questions for us, you can, in the few minutes we have remaining, put them in the chat. Also, I know this group has been wanting to meet in person.
Let's go.
If we meet in person, we would be able to do our final hoorah on Monday, April the 14th. So you all have to let us know if that's a date that will work for something in person and if you're still wanting that. Because like I said, y'all, we're all busy, not just the two of us, but all of y'all that are even in the chat.
No, better than that, PJ. I need y'all to plan it. Okay. I need y'all to put the word out. Mostly we have Link Church on here to get the singles out, to get those that are dating, those that are engaged, and let's make it dope. We'll talk about it, but we got to feel like it's something that people are going to come out for, because we're all busy. So if you're going to, give up your Monday evening, then it's got to be worth your while, worth our while as well.
Yep.
So we really want y'all to push this.
Yep. So if it's going to be 2 or 3, we love the 2 or 3, but we could just finish out on Zoom. So just start letting us know if that's going to work. I don't see any other questions coming in.
Yeah. So we'll wrap it up for tonight, but we just want to put it out there, and we'll get everything together, and you can invite people, of course, that don't go to Link, friends, maybe to go to another church. It's just, a get together type of thing. We're not trying to convert them to Link, but we just want to get some singles, some folks that are dating, some folks that are interested in hearing a little bit more about marriage, about how to piece things together, about relationships, and we'll make it fun, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be dope.
For sure.
And it'll be cool. So, and you may meet somebody. Never know. You may meet somebody. So if that's it, we will wrap it up for tonight. This has been great. I thought it's been really, really dope. So we want y'all to have a great evening, and we'll catch you right back here
next Monday.
Until then, have a good one, y'all. Take care.
Bye.